Hello, everybody. This is Eddie Escobar with The Pioneer. And today I wanted to discuss a topic that we see every day on the news. You see it all the time on social media. And as much as everyone says they don't want to talk about it, it's everywhere you go. And of course, it's the upcoming presidential election. Now, I don't want to discuss the racehorse issue of it all, we can go into details of all the different polls that are out there. We can talk about how Biden is up 1 or 2% here. We can talk about how Trump is up 1 or 2% here, how this is the election that nobody wanted. It's the two old guys. It's a rematch from before, deja vu. We've heard it all. There's two reasons I wanted to mainly discuss the presidential election that's coming. One is, how does it affect our students here at Cal State East Bay? How engaged are they in these conversations? And do they think any of the things that are happening right now in the national stage has a direct effect on them? Now, I spoke with a couple of students, and we're going to hear a little bit of what they had to say. But for the most part, it seems like we have a student populace that is going from somewhat engaged to completely engaged, but not because of the reasons that you think. Now, one thing I've learned is many believe that there there isn't there is a difference between the two candidates. They just don't think that there is much of a difference between the two. Now, this could be a how do I put this? This could be an effect of recency bias because, frankly, as I've done research on both candidates and as we've seen what's happened between the two candidates, there is a big difference between the two. Now, I don't want to go into too much on the accomplishments of one over the accomplishments of the other, because at the end of the day, people from different political views may see certain accomplishments as good and some may see them as bad. So I don't want to put my political leanings towards what I think may be good or bad. The main reason why I'm a little concerned about the reactions I received was more because of certain things that have been said by a certain candidate in a certain party. I'll be blunt. It's former President Trump. And it's not his policies that he's saying that he's going to do or lack thereof. He really hasn't spoken of any, but it's more the retribution that he's speaking of. He did state in December that he wanted to be a dictator on day one. Now, there have been many different interpretations of this, and there were back in 2016 when he first ran, Peter Thiel famously said, "Take Trump seriously, but not literally." But then we learned during his presidency that he really did try to do the things he said. He just wasn't competent enough to do them. So a second time around, he's not going to have the same safeguards that he did before because he learned his lesson from hiring from the old guard. So who is to say that many of the things that he has said he has wanted to do, he won't have a better success at doing it? He has appointed a third of the Supreme Court. Uh, and so if he wants to be a dictator on day one, what is really there out to stop him? We have now learned that the Republican Party is on board for whether it be for political reasons or career reasons. And the Democratic Party, in my opinion, is not necessarily strong enough to be a bulwark or a stop for some of these things. Now, I've gone on a little bit of a tangent, and for that, I apologize. But I just wanted to say where the original reason why I wanted to do this topic, and then when I spoke to some students out there, I didn't feel that they had the same concerns. So the first student we're going to hear from right now, her name is Lexi Nava. She is a senior here at East Bay. And we had a very short, brief conversation of what was happening with the campaign and let's see what you think of what she says. Hi, Lexi. This is Eddie Escobar with The Pioneer. First and foremost, I want to make sure that I have your permission to record this conversation.
Yes, you have my permission.
Awesome. So, Lexi, how plugged in are you current on the current election environment?
Currently, I want to say I'm like 50% plugged into it. I have been more involved with the current election environment before. As of right now, for the upcoming current elections, I'm not too educated on it as I would like to be or used to be, just because I just haven't had a chance to look into it a little bit more. So that's where I am currently for
What,
that.
why do you think that is? Why do you think you're not as engaged this time?
I think a lot of things have to play a role with that. I think one of the things is, unfortunately, I'm just so busy and I haven't taken the time away from my other what should I say, duties to look more into it and be more involved in who our candidates are or learn more about others. So I just haven't taken the time or had the time to step away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
So that was Lexi Nava. And from what you heard from what you said, it seems like she was a lot more engaged at first in the 2020 election, and as her life has gone on, has kind of dropped off on her engagement within today's politics. Now, the irony of that can be said that it is a success of the Biden administration to where even though that we can go into how inflation is up, and there is the housing crisis and there is the income inequality, but things have gone back to normal enough to where people do no longer see the major threat that is Donald Trump. Now, the next student we're going to hear from, her name is Griselda Flores. She is also a student here at East Bay, and she seemed to have a few more concerns. Go ahead and let's take a listen. Hi, Giselle. This is Eddie Escobar with The Pioneer. I just had a quick question for you. How engaged are you in the upcoming election?
I would definitely say I'm moderately following the upcoming election. I haven't been actively looking at news. I would say in my day-to-day life, I would say more weekly basis. I'm also taking a different class with Kate Bell, or maybe I shouldn't mention her name. Taking another class, and it's kind of about objectivity and journalism, and a lot of my coursework has been related to a lot of political affairs that have been going on within the last, just what's relevant as of late. So I would say moderately.
Okay, but it sounds like you are actually fairly engaged. Is there anything with the upcoming election that concerns you actively, or not really?
When you say something, can you just re-ask that question
Sure.
a different way?
So there are certain candidates for president that have actively stated that, for example, they want to be a dictator on the first day in office. Is that something that has concerned you within the election, or is that just, you consider that just political rhetoric?
Well, I think when it comes to that specific detail that you're talking about, I don't know the specific context, but I think that's very telling to our current political climate. I think a lot of us feel like we're caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to the election. As I wouldn't say a lot of us, including, and I of course I'm speaking for myself, and the people that have spoken to about this aren't particularly super happy with the candidates, but yeah, I think there's a lot of things that concern me in regards to this election as somebody who comes from a low income background. A lot of things that happen. I don't know if it got cut off. I feel like a lot affects us in our day-to-day that people don't realize, and also maybe might not care about. I think, for example, the war with Israel and Palestine is something that concerns a lot of us. We kind of see every day, things that are happening within the conflict, and I think whatever side you may be on, we might, have a certain opinion, but I feel like it really sucks that there's a war going on, and it sucks that us, as everyday people, we're just like witnessing it in certain politicians have the capability to control what's happening, and they're not doing probably the most that they should or shouldn't be doing. And I think that's something that's affected probably. It's really part of my concern. I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to the dictatorship, but again, I'm not particularly
That's
passionate
fine.
about either or
Right.
candidate, and I'm talking about Democratic and Republican, of course.
Of course, it's the only
you
two
know.
real, let's be honest, it's the only two real games in town.
I mean, there are like third party, but the sad thing is, realistically, if you were passionate about those parties, there's not really, a good chance. And that really sucks that there's not an even chance between people's certain chosen candidates again. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
yeah, thank you. Sorry it took super long. I hope that was.
So now that you've heard from Griselda, now you know where we are a little bit. This is a small sample size of today's students here at East Bay. So my bigger concern is the fact that, again, as I said earlier, we now have a presidential candidate, not only that he is stating that he wants to be a dictator, he has openly said that he wants to be friends with the dictators out there in the world who have suppressed electoral freedoms, like Viktor Orban in Hungary, or more recently, CPAC guest Nayib Bukele of El Salvador. Now, when as the saying says, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are, that is a major concern. Now, there is truth that there are sometimes neither candidate can be ideal, but when it comes to situations like we have in today's presidential politics, my concern is that we are repeating the mistakes of 2016. In 2016, because neither candidate was what everybody exactly wanted, nobody took the buffoonishness or the threats seriously of someone saying that they either A, want to be a dictator or want to start taking away civil liberties or starting to quote things like Franco from Spain, for my friends, everything, for my enemies, the law. So I do think that there is a outreach that needs to be done, or at least more education needs to be done so that people can be more aware of what is happening, because even though there is the thought process that this can't happen here, it can happen very easily. We just, not that long ago, with January 6th in 2021, that was an insurrection. It was an unsuccessful one, but it was still the first time we did not have a peaceful transition of power in this country. So it does seem like there is a larger embrace of authoritarianism out in the world as its popularity has started to spike in other countries as well. As I mentioned, Mr. Bukele, who was just recently reelected in El Salvador, and Viktor Orban, who's about to go into his 5th election. But all we can really do and hope is that people stay informed and that we can learn our lessons from the past. Again, this is Eddie Escobar with The Pioneer, signing off.